Welcome back, my friends. It's Hakeem Anwar, and let's get into the top stories of this week. The first story for today is Big Tech is making a bunch of power plays and going nuclear. Data centers around the US account for half of the current renewable energy deals. Right, over 50% of renewable energy deals are in the hands of big tech companies. Learn how they are siphoning power from the grid and also your drinking water while polluting your environment, all for the purposes of surveilling you. And our second story for tonight is your Wi-Fi sense tingling. US internet giant Comcast just rolled out a Wi-Fi sensing feature, which will track movement in your home between your devices. Learn how this works and whether it could be used for surveillance. Hint, it can. Our third story is a new app, ICE. Yes, that's right. An app that tracks immigration and customs enforcement. And now the developer of this said app faces political pressure after they gained 240,000 users and the app was featured on CNN. All of these users want to report the locations of law enforcement like immigration's customs. And now political officials are pissed, threatening to take criminal action. We'll talk about whether this is legal and other apps like this that will crowdsource the locations of authority figures. And our last story for tonight, ending on a positive note, is going back in real life. Youths in the Netherlands are ditching the devices and started an offline club featuring screen-free zones. Now, that's something I think we all need. And remember, if you appreciate well-researched content, follow our show at tbot.substack.com and take back our tech.org, and please share it with your friends. This is important information everyone needs to know. So in our first story for today, we know in the past year, big tech companies have been transforming the energy landscape, searching to power their hyperscale data centers. Now they've bought up all the power that was already available to them, and now they need more. So they're securing renewable energy sources. Oh man, got to give them a pat on the back for that. And they're also bringing back power plants from the dead, even nuclear plants that were decommissioned. And this trend has now been punctuated in the past few weeks with Meta and Google making new announcements for their projects. So first, we need to understand, what is a hyperscale data center? Well, a hyperscale data center is what it sounds like. It's hyperscale, it's massive. It can encompass thousands of servers, miles of connection equipment, and take up millions of feet of square space. In fact, one of Meta's new data centers being planned to be built in Louisiana is almost going to be the size of Manhattan. Now, keeping these data centers online is crucial, right? You wouldn't want to go down so you would not be able to use your Snapchat filter or whatever. So these data centers are built with their own sources of power, dedicated energy infrastructure in case the grid power fails. Now, this dedicated energy infrastructure could be in multiple different ways. They could be pulling power from their local grid. They could be purchasing shares in an existing power plant. And they could also build dedicated plants on site, which is what companies like XAI and Meta are planning to do. And of course, they can even revive nuclear energy. And many big tech companies are searching for this. So there's just all this demand. So let's look at Google's environmental report, which they look at. You can see this graph on the bottom right here, and that is terawatt hours on the left-hand side. So their energy demands have it's something like quadrupled in the past 7 years and doubled in the past 4 years. And so in their environmental report, their total electricity consumption rose to over 30 terawatt hours, and that's mostly for their data centers alone. Now, how much is 30 terawatt hours? Well, a terawatt is 1 trillion watts. A home uses about 1 kilowatt. So it's a massive amount of power. A US home uses about 998 kilowatt hours per month. And so this amount of energy could power 30,000 homes for a month straight. And this is just one big tech company. Google is the biggest energy provider, but their energy user, but every big tech company is in the scale. So they maxed out their energy effectiveness, and now they need to search for alternative sources of power, such as geothermal, nuclear plants, and even nuclear fission, which is something that hasn't a type of technology that hasn't been used in production yet. Haven't had a working plant quite yet. And so Google invested in Commonwealth Fusion Systems, and they purchased half the output of the future nuclear fusion reactor, which is estimated to be completed in 2030. So they're planning out more than half a decade ahead. In 2024, Google announced a deal with Kairos Power to purchase energy using small modular reactors, which are just tiny nuclear reactors, kind of like the ones used in nuclear submarines. So they're planning their energy needs over 5 years out, and they're getting creative with the sources. Meanwhile, Meta closed a $10 billion AI data center. Let's check this out. Meta select Northeast Louisiana as the site of a $10 billion artificial optimized data center. The governor calls this a new chapter for the state. Now, this data center will take up 2,250 acres on a former farm, and it will be Meta's largest data center to date, and it's going to focus on training their AI models, such as Llama. And this data center is going to consume so much power that Meta had a collaboration with the Louisiana Energy Company and is going to build 3 new gas power plants for $3 billion, which are going to come online at about 2028 or 2029. And the energy demands for this one data center could power up to 2 million homes. That's absolutely wild. And then there are people, so this area, Richland Parish, LA, which is typically an area that has been struggling, but now is going to be home to this data center. And people looking at the project say there's no transparency. The deal that Meta has with Entergy, this power supplier, the local power supplier, has no information about who's going to handle the uptake in cost. Meta says they're going to cover the cost in building the new plants, but if the power demands are going to drive up the price of energy, it doesn't mean that local energy customers' rates won't go up. And so imagine being there, already being struggling, and now there's a data center driving up your electricity prices. Meta was also planning a nuclear reactor to help support the energy needs, but they're not talking about this anymore. Another very important big tech company is Oracle, which is part of Project Stargate and a collaboration with OpenAI. And they are also searching for nuclear power sources for their data centers, and they have gotten building permits for these small modular reactors. And these haven't been used in practice, and they shouldn't be expected until 2030. Microsoft is also bringing back the 3 Mile Island nuclear facility, and they signed a 20-year power purchase agreement with Constellation Energy. And this company runs over 20 nuclear reactors in the United States. Now, 3 Mile Island, you might remember the incident in 1979 in which one of the reactors had a partial meltdown and could have contaminated the entire Northeast United States. But don't worry. They're not bringing up that reactor. They're going to bring up the other one, which is reactor 1, reactor 2, I forget. But they have a lot of work ahead of them as they're going to have to restore it. But it's okay. The CEO, Joe Dominguez, is saying the plan is ahead of schedule. In 2 years, it might be ready to generate power. Yeah, when it's something like this, massive amounts of power, and a decommissioned nuclear site, it's just, they're on it. This is so important, driven by big tech money. All of these developments driven by big tech, all for the pursuit of AI, because we know it's the most important thing, right? This is something we're going to use. It's more important than water. It's more important than power. I'm being sarcastic. There's something bigger going on here with these renewable data centers. And now that big tech companies account for more than half of all renewable energy deals, they're intimately tied with the future of the U.S. energy and the world's energy. I'm sure this is happening in other parts of the world. And this is just one part of the equation that, okay, fine, my energy bill goes up a few bucks. It's all good. I needed the emotional support of ChatGPT. But the other part of the equation is the water it takes to keep these hyperscale data centers cool and the environmental impacts of the data centers. So these data centers, let's look at Project Aquifer. Let me bring this on screen. This is a data center in Memphis, Tennessee, run by a Twitter, previously Twitter, XAI, whatever the hell Musk is calling it these days. And they're talking about how this XAI Gigafactory, which is going to be training Grok, and also performing learning for self-driving cars, is now going to be pulling water from the Memphis aquifer, the cleanest, the best water in the state, or in this part of Tennessee, is now going to be absorbed to keep these computers cool. They're also working with the Tennessee Valley Authority to get wastewater, and they could use up to 5 million gallons a day to cool the supercomputer of fresh groundwater from the aquifer. And then there's videos circulating online of locals complaining about how it smells terrible now that this factory is opened up. Watch this.
It smells terrible out here. The stench is horrible, and that's because of the air pollution that is going on. We know that there's about 35 gas turbines being used by this facility right now, and the Southern Poverty Law Center believes that that is a violation of the Clean Air Act. But on top of that, this facility requires about 1 million gallons of water per day to cool down the supercomputer. The problem is Memphis sits on top of a natural aquifer, deep groundwater, pure good water that comes out of our tap. And for decades, activists have tried to protect the water because there's constant threats to it, including this right here. And this isn't just going to impact the people around here, okay? Maybe we drink the same water.
And one of the insidious parts about this is typically these data centers are opened in the poorest parts of the state. The Meta's data center is opening in one of the poorest parts of Louisiana. Here we are seeing parts of Memphis that Elon Musk has taken advantage of, and taking advantage is the right word. Exploiting is the right word, because the civilians who live in these areas are the ones that are going to suffer. They're going to shoulder the costs, the environmental costs and the energy costs. Google consumes a ton of water, 24 cubic meters of water, 24 million cubic meters of water. A cubic meter, guys, that's like, I don't know. What is a cubic meter? It's a freaking giant square of water. The giant square of water. Microsoft, 8 million cubic meters. Meta, 3 million cubic meters in 2023. And so they take this from city sources and from natural aquifers. And so at a time where the world is facing a drought, California especially is facing the drought, these data centers are taking all of the water. Why on earth are we allowing this? Is it going to benefit AI? Is this going to improve the lives of everyone? Is it going to benefit humanity? Where is this all going? Well, we can look to the words of Oracle CEO Larry Ellison. He kind of lays it out. He says, we're going to have supervision. Every police officer is going to be supervised at all times. Well, thank you for watching my back. I don't want to be hassled by the police. And if there's a problem, AI will report that problem and report it to the appropriate person. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we are constantly recording and reporting everything that is going on. Could that be the real reason as to why there are so many data centers being built, why there's so many power demands for them? And so this ties into a grander agenda where every Ring doorbell, every Google Home, every big tech phone is constantly absorbing the real-time data around it, microphone, video, and it's feeding it into one of these giant data centers. So someone, somewhere, can judge you for it, judge you for the things you're doing. Meanwhile, these companies are breaking clean air laws, clean water laws, and taking everyone else's resources. For what? All for what? Some AI tools that we don't need these giant data centers to run? It's absolutely insane. And the only way to stop these data centers is not to feed them with data. It's to not feed them with data. That's how you make these data centers obsolete. If there's no demand for the data centers, then it's a wasted investment. So we must quit big tech products and services and find alternatives as we quickly can. Otherwise, so much power will be held at these data centers, and they will rob us of the world's natural resources. I'm going to start with the announcements. Usually I do it before the story, but I'm going to hit you with some quick announcements. Well, one, you notice the setup is different. I'm currently traveling in Japan. That's also why the show is late. I was on some mountains and wasn't able to finish the show in time. But hey, it's out now. And I'll be making a video about some of my favorite and most disappointing technology that I encountered in Japan. It's going to be a cool video. Subscribers, if you're not already subscribed to our Substack, you're going to get first dibs and access to that. And also I want to bring up, we have our 4th of July sale. Yes. So if you care about these data centers, you don't want to use a phone that is going to store data on these data centers, then maybe it's time for a private de-Googled phone, which makes zero connections to big tech. It was 4th of July last week, and we have extended our Independence Day sale. Check it out. We've got phones, laptops, tablets, all that reject big tech and still let you do everything you want. I mean, I'm traveling in Japan with, I only know 2 words here: sorry and thank you. And this phone is working completely fine for me. So hey, it works. It can replace everything your normal phone can do. And the sale is extended, but not for too long. So check it out. Our second story for the week: my Wi-Fi sense is tingling. Comcast rolled out their Wifi-Motion early access to certain customers in the US. And this Wifi-Motion works by measuring a Wi-Fi signal strength. So your router between a device in your home, and maybe it's a computer, maybe it's your very smart speaker. It's so smartical that this Wi-Fi signal strength, the router can measure it between them. And when someone walks through it, because we absorb energy, we reflect energy, we reflect the electromagnetic field, the pattern shifts, and this can be detected as motion. So Comcast was like, well, let's roll this out as a feature. So this is Wifi-Motion, and it can detect movement in different zones in their home while they're not there, and you'll get a little notification, right? So this is what that looks like. There is a graphic here, right? There you go. There's your device. I don't even know. They both look like routers. I'm going to guess the one on the bottom left is a router, and the one on the top right is your device. And you walk through that, and so it creates this zone, this oval-shaped zone. And so you will need multiple devices to cover different zones in your house. And yes, I read through the privacy policy. I don't have it here for you. They do monitor the Wifi-Motion data, and they will share it with law enforcement or other third parties without notifying you. Are you surprised? I'm not surprised. I am not surprised. Color me not surprised. This Wi-Fi sensing technology is around 10 years old. At the beginning, it was being used to measure your breathing patterns, right? University of Utah professor Neil Patwari concocted a study that put 20 wireless radios around a hospital bed that all send and receive to each other. So there's 300 data points, 300 different signal strengths between all of these radios. And so when your chest is rising and falling, they can detect the number of breaths per minute. And it was within 0.2 or 0.4 of breaths. So they created this tech to detect your breathing, and it wasn't very good. I mean, it took 20 radios. And so the market decided they wouldn't use Wi-Fi, but you could use Wi-Fi for things like monitoring and security industries. So checking to see if your grandma is moving around at home, or whether someone is in a particular hallway. Or they had very noble things like, all right, we'll get to a emergency area full of rubble, and we'll use Wi-Fi to detect if people are trapped underneath the rubble. It'll be so smart. And so Wi-Fi and other radio waves can be used to perform surveillance of people's movements at distance and outside of buildings, and detect how many humans are inside and their movements. And with a fine enough wave, you can even detect types of activities and their gestures. You can detect people moving their hands. You can detect people dancing, things like that. And so had a very noble cause. And then more recently, Patwari, this professor I'm talking about, he got a U.S. Army research contract. But this time he's doing the opposite. Now he wanted to protect buildings from external Wi-Fi surveillance, right? This Wi-Fi surveillance is really effective. You can set up hundreds of feet away. You can you can see through walls. You can see through walls, right? So the Army was like, nah, we don't want people seeing through walls, and we still want to have Wi-Fi indoors. So they hired Patwari to do a study. I couldn't really find information about that. But there's also a EU Advanced Networking Systems Department that had this project called CSI Murder. This CSI Murder corresponds to channel state information which is it's a feature, it's metadata in Wi-Fi packets that are sent out. And that's what the attackers measure to learn about the wave propagation and how it's traveling and any potential activity while measuring it over time. And so these attacks can happen passively or actively by measuring the Wi-Fi network from outside the building, or you can actually transmit into the target area and measure those signals. And so this study found that the strategy can be jammed by modifying the information in each Wi-Fi frame, and can also intercept an active attack and modify the packets to mess up their results and create a bunch of noise in their measurements, making it hard for them to detect. Now, I'll put a graph up showing you how precise they were able to track people's locations using this Wi-Fi sensing tech. Now, this isn't the first time this Wi-Fi sensing tech has been released to the public, not just the Army or EU. Verizon Fios has offered a similar Wifi-Motion sensor, and Google Nest, although it doesn't use Wi-Fi, offers sleep sensing. So it's got a high-frequency radar to detect your breathing, snoring, and coughing. So yeah, I mean, surround yourself with all these radio waves, and I mean, it probably won't impact your health. And hey, you can track your breathing, snoring, and coughing at night. Like, what a gift. But as long as you don't think about how our cells use electromagnetic fields to communicate to each other, and ignore the mountain of evidence as overexposure to EMF has been linked to anxiety, depression, fatigue, cancer, and many other biomarkers of poor health, increased inflammation, all these things. And if you want to learn more about this, check out BioInitiative 2012's report, which did a meta-analysis of all of the available literature and studies out there on the effects of EMF on living things and compiled it in one place. It's very, very convincing. It's a report by, a team of over 20 people. Over half of those are doctors. Now, if you use a router supplied by your ISP, it might be a good time to switch before Wi-Fi sensing becomes optional no longer. Comcast, this is a beta stage, right? Other internet service providers might roll this out as a feature. Next thing you know, your Wifi-Motion sensors is going into the data center, so they know whether you're at home or not. They're like Santa, right? They want to know everything. So as Wi-Fi becomes more pervasive in our homes, it's important to know the hidden dangers. Get rid of wireless and go wired. Improve your health, improve your privacy. Controversy this past week after this app called IceBlock went viral, gained 240,000 users. Now, what's IceBlock? I mean, you probably heard of it. You can use it to report la policía. When immigrations and customs enforcement are in your area, you get a little notification on your phone saying to get the hell out of there. And so it warns people in the areas, and you can also make reports on the app. Now, it's only available for iPhone. I don't know why, because the dude's an iPhone dev. And it's currently the third most downloaded app on the Apple App Store. It's featured on CNN, which is why this controversy began. So that's IceBlock, right? You can see, oh my gosh, there's a nice agent in the area. And now the developer, Joshua Aaron, has got the U.S. Attorney General's attention, who said he needs to watch out, right? Because I mean, he's reporting on law enforcement activities, guys. He's gonna put them in danger. She says what they're doing is actively encouraging people to go avoid law enforcement activities and operations, and we're actually going to go after them and prosecute them. What they're doing, we believe, is illegal. And here's a statement from the director of ICE, Todd M. Lyons. CNN promotion of the device spotting app is reckless and impossible, advertising an app that basically paints a target on federal law enforcement officers' backs as sickening. My officers and agents are already facing a 500 increase in assaults. Oh my God. And now promoting this app on live television is like inviting violence against it. It's basically the same thing. By having their location on the screen and saying to run, it's also putting them under threat. But legal experts and lawyers don't agree. They say that IceBlock falls under protected free speech. We should have the right to report on law enforcement activity, and law enforcement doesn't have the right to operate in secret. Now, The app's not open source, which kind of sucks. Maybe there's a reason for that. The developer pledges it doesn't collect user data, and the sightings auto-delete after 4 hours. Now, there's a lot of questions I could ask. Well, does it use Apple location services? It's an iPhone, so it must. Does it use big tech data centers? It probably does too. There are some considerations for that. But because it uses Apple location services, Apple has historical locations for everyone using it and could isolate users' device block pretty easily. Give me all the Apple users with this app installed. Okay, what's their location history, right? Things like that. But hey, Apple did approve the app. So I guess Apple approves of this. You may remember a series of apps that crowdsourced police tracking. There was one app that popularized it, Waze Maps and Navigation, which was first an app of its own, and then it was later purchased by Google, and it helped crowdsource data, driving data. So obstacles on the road, maybe a jerk driver. Just kidding, that wasn't a thing. But most importantly, it was used to report speed traps and police cars to warn drivers to slow down ahead of them. Now, there was also Citizen, which is another app that was used to crowdsource crime reports and provide live video. At first, it was limited to San Francisco and New York City, but now it's available in many modern cities. Law enforcement will also use crowdsourced data when it's helpful for them, such as the LEADER, Large Emergency Event Digital Information Repository. Man, they never come up with good names. You need to come up with better names, more catchy names, which was developed as a collab between Los Angeles Sheriff's Department in 2014 and Citizen Global. Now, this app activates when there's a large-scale emergency event and lets you upload photos or videos directly to law enforcement. In the past week, Trump signed the Big Beautiful Bill, and that also gave ICE the $170 billion total budget, which is bigger than any federal law enforcement agency. Like, it made ICE the biggest federal law enforcement agency, and they have a budget bigger than most militaries now. Now, whatever your stance is on the immigration issues, we should always hold our police accountable and ensure they don't get to operate in secret. You have the right to track their movements. After all, they're more than ready to conduct surveillance on us, bypassing the Fourth Amendment, bypassing constitutional rights, and buying the data as they need to conduct mass surveillance on the people. So with that, I think you should have the right to track police, and you should use apps. You can use apps to do it. I wish there were better apps than a proprietary app on the App Store. But hey, maybe this is a call out. Someone build an app, Shazam. Or maybe we can use OpenStreetMaps and existing libraries and existing infrastructure to build something that will help crowdsource police activity. I think that would be really, really cool. What do you think? Do you think that tracking the police is ethical? Do you think that it's unethical because some people are here illegally? I want to know your thoughts. Please leave us a comment at tbot.substack.com. And remember to subscribe as a paid subscriber for more bonuses that I'm working on. Now, the last story for tonight is a positive one. Our last story for tonight. Now, are you tired of being around cell phone zombies? Yeah, me too. And so in searching for positive news this week about the world, because this show really gets me sad sometimes, I found this offline club in the Netherlands. That's right, in real life, offline club for teenagers and young people. Now, this movement in the Netherlands has already gotten a following of over 500,000 people on Instagram, ironically, but hey, that's how it starts. And teenagers and young people are self-aware enough to realize how bad social media has been, well, for socializing, myself included. Offline Club is a Dutch social movement that holds events where phones aren't allowed or encouraged and creates containers and cafes to do people like things to allow people to connect with others. So what do people do without phones? Wow. They'll do things like board games, social interaction, and reading. Amazing. And the British Standards Institution put out a recent survey to those under 21 years old, and almost half said they would prefer to grow up in a world without internet. So that is really, really cool. This is great news. So this offline club, you can't see it because I've Instagram blocked here, but I'm sure there's some really great pictures here. They need to get them. We need to get them off of Instagram for sure. But this is a movement that is growing in the Netherlands. Now, this might be a really cool movement to bring to the US or to bring to other countries to have a digital detox. Yeah, at a cafe or anything. I think this is a really good idea. And I might start doing this in my hometown. So there's hope yet, right? The younger generation, I think that, gets a lot of judgment for being addicted to their phones, but they really shouldn't, because everyone is addicted to their phones, and we shouldn't prejudge these generations now, because they understand, and a lot of them are wanting something better. Now we just need to create offline spaces for all the rest of us. Okay, that's it. This is a positive thing. Start an offline club in your community. I want to hear about it, and I will let you know my experiences here in Japan as I try and get people offline. But hold on, the show's not over yet. It's time for today's solution for today. While working on today's show, I had to do a lot of unit conversions. Google's power usage was in terawatts. How does that translate to how much power a normal house uses? Or when Meta uses 3 million liters of water or cubic meters of water, how many gallons is that? I'm a silly American, so we don't really think in meters and stuff. And so this app today was very, very helpful. This app is called Converter Now, and you can find it if you have an Android-based phone. You can get F-Droid, and you can find it by searching Converter Now. Here we are. Here's Converter Now by Damiano Ferrari. And this is just a really great app to translate from one unit to another. So if I open up Converter Now, you can see that I've got my length units up. Let's go ahead and look for power. It doesn't just do power, it does length, area, volume, even currencies. Oh, wow. This is amazing. I didn't even realize this, but this is very, very useful. I guess I'm in... let's see, they should let me favorite something. That would be really cool. Say I've got $100 and it'll tell me every currency I have. Yeah, that looks right about right. So I believe it will use a currency service to get these prices, but this is still really, really awesome. And if you don't want it to connect out to the internet, of course, you can disable its internet permission or its network permission if you are using a de-Googled phone. Let's see, anything else cool here? Fuel consumption, angles, shoe size. Oh my God, this is amazing. Oh, wow, now I can go buy shoes. I'm not going to tell you my shoe size, but this is going to be really useful. I was just in a in a hostel-like thing, and I was going to go hiking, and I didn't have boots. So me and the innkeeper were comparing our foot sizes to make sure they were all right, because he asked me my shoe size. I don't know Japanese sizes. I really should. I'll spend more time here and figure that out. But I could have just used Converter Now. This feels like an ad to me now. Converter Now. Anyways, if you like this tech tip, let me know in the comments. Okay, my friends, this is it for TBOT Show, episode number 6. Always remember to follow us on tbot.substack.com. Share this episode with your friends. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. And we've got a lot of awesome things coming. Also, check out abovephone.com if you want privacy gear. And always remember, our connection is sacred. Peace and love.